Welcome to Module 3. You're going to learn about adding and subtracting in Module 3. This lesson is Module 3, Lesson 1. How do I make equivalent fractions with the number line, area model, and with numbers? Let's begin. This problem asks us, how can we represent 1/2 4 different ways? Well, if I want to draw 1/2 using one of these blocks, I can just simply split it in half. So that is equal to 1/2. Now, if I want to represent it 4 different ways, I can split each of these blocks in half. And if I want them to be different numbers or equivalent fractions, I can just split them in different ways. Like this, I could split one way, which makes 2 sections that are shaded out of 4. So 1/2 times a fraction equals 2/4. So basically, we split into one section 2 sections. So we multiplied by 2 over 2. So 1 times 2 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. Now, if I want to show another problem, I can just split it again differently. Now I have 3 sections shaded out of 6. So 1/2 times a fraction equals 3/6. So again, I have 1, 2, 3 sections. So I do 3 over 3. 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6. So 3/6 is equivalent to 1/2. Go ahead and pause your video. I'd like you to try the last one all by yourself. See if you can find another equivalent fraction to 1/2. You could have said 4/8. You could have said 5/10. All of these are equivalent fractions. If you said 4/8, you multiplied by 4 over 4, because 1 times 4 is 4, and 2 times 4 is 8. And if you said 5/10, 1/2 times 5 over 5. 1 times 5 is 5, 2 times 5 is 10. So now let's look a little deeper into these problems. So we multiplied here by 2 over 2, and here by 3 over 3, and here by 4 over 4, and here by 5 over 5. Well, what did we really do to that number, to that 1/2? All we did to it was multiply it by 1 whole. All of those numbers were multiplied by 1 whole. And you know that any number times 1 is always the same number. So this is a really easy way for us to find equivalent fractions. Let's try some more. Let's make some fractions that are equivalent to 1/3. But before we do that, let's find what 1/3 is on a number line. So this number line has 0 and it has 1. And if we want to make 1/3, we're going to split our number line into 3 different sections. So I have 1 section, 2 sections, and then 3 sections, because 3/3 is equal to 1. So to make 1/3, I count from 0 to 1/3. The next dash or line is 2/3, and then 1 whole is 3/3. So from 0 to 1/3, that is showing 1/3. We're going to use what we just learned about making halves to make thirds. So if I want to make 1/3, I'm just going to split it into thirds, and I'm going to shade one of them. So this shows 1/3. I'd like you to do it to all the 3 remaining boxes, and then I'd like you to pause your video, and I'd like you to go ahead and split using the other direction to find an equivalent fraction to 1/3. So go ahead and find 3 equivalent fractions to 1/3 and then come back. You could have found 2/6. You could have found 3/9. You could have found 4/12. You could have also found 5/15, depending on what you split your box into. So now, as we look at this, we know that 1/3 times what gave us 2/6. So let's say we don't have the box. We can't see the box above here. We don't see this anymore. I can look at this here, and I know that 1 times what equals 2. I know that 1 times 2 equals 2. And I know that I'm multiplying by 1, so it's got to be 2 over 2. And 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6. So I multiplied by 2 over 2, which is 1. I want you to pause your video, and I want you to figure out what you multiplied 1/3 by to get all of these numbers, and then come back. In order to get 3/9, you multiplied by 3 over 3, because 1 times 3 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9. In order to get 4/12, you multiplied by 4 over 4. 1 times 4 is 4, 3 times 4 is 12. And in order to get 5/15, you multiplied by 5 over 5. 1 times 5 is 5, 3 times 5 is 15. If you got those correct, great job. If you didn't, remember, we're multiplying by 1, which is a fraction that's equal to 1. Any number over itself is equal to 1. So it could be 21 over 21. It could be 17 over 17. All of those fractions where the numerator and the denominator are the same, they are equal to 1. Let's move on. Let's make some fractions equal to 2/3. Again, we have our number line 0 and 1. We're splitting it into thirds because the denominator is in 3. So we're going to split it into thirds. And we're going to show this is 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. We want to show 2/3, so we'd start at 0 and we'd go all the way up to 2/3. So that's showing 2/3. Now, just like I did on the others, I'm going to split it into thirds, just like I did on the one before, because it's thirds. And I'm going to shade 2 of them because it wants me to show 2/3. I'd like you to do the same for these other 2 boxes. And I'd like you to pause your video and find equivalent fractions by splitting in the opposite direction. Then come back. There are a few things that you could have done here. You could have split this into 2 sections and got 1, 2, 3, 4 shaded out of 6. You could have split the next one into 3 sections and gotten 6 out of 9. So we know that 2/3 times a fraction equals 4/6. And I know that there are 2 sections, so it's going to be 2 over 2, because 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 2 is 6. And I also did 2/3 times a fraction, which equals 6/9. And I split it into 3 sections, so it's going to be 3 over 3, because I know that 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 3 is 9. So 2/3, 4/6, and 6/9 are all equivalent. So if you needed to find an equivalent fraction to 2/3, you could use 4/6. You could also use 6/9. And there are others that you could use as well, as long as you're multiplying a number by 1, which is any fraction with a numerator that's the same as the denominator. Now let's try an improper fraction. And an improper fraction just means that the top number in the numerator is larger than the denominator. So 5 is larger than 4, which means it's going to be greater than 1. So an improper fraction just means the numerator is bigger than the denominator, and it means that it's greater than 1. So we're going to split it into fourths, because that's what it asks us to split it into. Okay, right there. So we're going to split it into fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is 1 whole, like we've been talking about, and 5/4 would be beyond the 1 whole. So to show 5/4, it would be this entire number line up until 5/4. So to make fractions equivalent to 5/4, we have to split it into fourths, and we have to shade 5 of them. So we have to shade the 4 here, the 1 whole. We have to shade 1/4 more. Okay, so we're going to do that to both of our things here. Now, in order to find an equivalent fraction that's equal to that, we just have to split it in the opposite direction. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of what 1 would be, which is 8. So 10/8 is equivalent to 5/4. And we can do it again, split in the opposite direction. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 out of what 1 would be, which is 12. So 5/4 is equivalent to 15/12. Now let's check and see, what did we multiply? 5 times what gave us 10? Well, I know 5 times 2 is 10, so it's got to be 2 over 2. 5 times 2 is 10, 4 times 2 is 8. So I know that they're equivalent. 5 times what gives me 15? I know 5 times 3 is 15. And I have to do 3 over 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So I've just shown you how to make fractions that are equivalent to each other. We're going to use this skill as we move through adding and subtracting fractions. So if you need to rewatch this video, please do so.